Welcome to All Things Marketing Podcast, the podcast that talks all things marketing for both franchise and multi-location marketing leaders. ATM is brought to you by PureDriven. We'll show you how to turn your brand into a money-making machine. Here's your host, Steve Rockwood.
Hello and welcome to ATM. My name is Steve Rockwood. I am the marketing manager at PureDriven. Today we are going to talk about why you should delegate. I am joined by my co-host Chris Swanson, the CEO at PureDriven, as well as the head of franchise development. Would you like to say hello to the audience, Chris?
Well, hello, audience. It's great to be here. It's so awesome. Not too long ago, I was promoted to co-host.
You were?
I'm still celebrating.
I believe that was 2 episodes ago. This is only your 3rd episode as the co-host, if my brain serves me correctly. So, Chris, we are talking about the act of having someone else do something for you. What does that mean? Why would we do that?
Well, if you were to look this up in the dictionary, basically delegation, really important part of growing as a leader within an organization. And that doesn't matter if you're a business, doesn't matter what you're doing. So often what we see is some of the bad habits that come from not being willing to, as we say, elevate and delegate. And a lot of those bad habits stem around micromanagement. And while there's a time to oversee projects and do those kinds of things, it's definitely not something we should be doing all the time. And so often what we see as we talk to different franchises and corporate-owned locations, multi-store locations, is that that whole micromanagement stems from a lack of trust. And so those are things that are important if you're going to elevate your business. If you're going to take your store to the next level, is to really understand that concept of delegating duties.
Gotcha. Well, I thought of this topic because I was actually moving about 2 weeks ago, and I usually do everything myself. My wife and I like to do everything ourselves, but we actually hired some people to help move for once. And when I walked into the house after about an hour of having people there, it was amazing how much stuff they had brought out to the truck. So I thought, wow, I actually like doing this. I like having other people do some stuff. I didn't have to lift my washing machine and dryer, and that was kind of cool.
That's a great feeling when somebody else is willing to kind of jump in and help out. And that's a really good point, Steve, that one of the things that happens is when you first decide that you're going to delegate. And one of the first experiences I had that is as a young business person, I hired an admin, Jean Roy. I still speak very fondly of Jean, because she was a person that had basically it was getting up there in terms of her years and career, and she had been doing a lot of work for sales management. And I finally made that decision to hire her as an admin, and unbelievable change in my life when I finally was willing to let go and say, okay, I'll show you some of these things, but I just need you to do it. And it was amazing. By the end of the time before she retired, it was like she could think the same way that I was thinking. Yep. And so it became easy to delegate, but you have to do that scary thing and let go. And that's so hard for so many people. And you might be thinking, wait a second, I don't even have people I can delegate to. For example, you shared the movers. You got to pay them.
Yep.
There's cost to those kinds of things. So if you're an entrepreneur, or you're starting out, or say you're in a store and you're the owner and you're trying to make revenue and things are tight, you're really having to make good decisions with your money. And maybe there doesn't feel like there's anybody to delegate to.
Yep. Or
you can't get the resources together to delegate. And my experience in that has been that where there's a will, there's a way. And there's other people you can delegate to. You can get people excited about what you're doing. Don't get stuck thinking that you have to do everything yourself, because you don't get very far doing that.
Well, speaking of Jean, the first time you and I met, actually, you forgot to eat lunch, and she actually just randomly brought you a sandwich that she said, I know you haven't eaten yet, Chris, so here is your food. And you told me, if I didn't have Jean, I probably would never eat.
Well, when I go home, my wife is very good at making sure that I eat.
Nice.
But at the end of the day, there's been many a day where I've skipped breakfast and lunch and realized at dinner I haven't eaten all day. If you know who I am, I'm kind of high octane, and I like to run around and do lots of things. And those aren't high priorities for me.
No, well, the worst part of the Jean story is you let her go and retire on us, so I lost my good friend at the front of the office.
I know. I try keeping her. I still call her and ask her if she'll come back.
Oh, yeah, I remember you told her, and when she retired, you said, well, you retired from your first job here. Now you have another 20 years to do your other job.
Yeah, it was a fun retirement party for sure.
Oh, yeah.
The bigger point is being willing to let go is usually the first part and the hardest part of delegating. But as you delegate, what you'll find is that you can get that much more done and you can accomplish more in your day-to-day task.
Awesome. So can you just kind of tell us the difference between, or maybe not the difference, but how a business owner could use this internally and to hire people outside, like an agency or, in my case, the movers?
Yeah. So I think the first thing you should do is go high level. Really define within your organization the critical functions. Look in your own look at yourself and then really be honest with yourself and say, what do I want to do? What are the things I absolutely am gifted at or really love doing? And then look either at that time to delegate the things you don't want to do off, make a priority list, 1 through 10, whatever, however you want to do that, and say, that's the first thing I don't want to do anymore. And then you're going to feel great when you have somebody else in that seat running that function. And so you just really get to feel good. There's a snowball effect as you start knocking these things off. And in your organization, that can be anything from outsourcing, if you have QuickBooks or books that you need to take or tax accounting, or maybe you love tax accounting. So maybe you're outsourcing the fact that you don't want to be the general manager of the store. So you bring a general manager and that's very gifted at that. We all know our strengths and weaknesses, or we should be able to figure those out very quickly and need to if we're going to be successful in our businesses. But that's a great way to start and get moving on that, Steve.
Awesome. And then as far as internally, say you don't want to hire someone externally right now, what are some good tasks off the top of your head you could think of in a retail location that you would maybe give to someone else that already works for you to take them off your plate on the day-to-day?
Yeah, so one of the things, like my personality, I'm not extremely detailed. And so what happens is I get caught in situations where I might need somebody that does a function over and over again. And I try to be detailed and disciplined in those critical areas, but there's things that are going to get missed. Like say I have to post an event for my business over and over again. I could see myself falling down on that. So maybe I'm going to take somebody within the store, a certain employee, and say, okay, as part of your function, you own this specific thing. Make sure that's very defined, what the expectations are, and then really let them run with it. And if it's not working out, you should know, because you should be able to score that. Go back and look and see, did that happen? Is that still happening over and over again? And as you go along, you might determine some of those things aren't needed anymore. You can remove those and add other things. But it does something really great for that employee or that team member, and that is it empowers them, because they now feel like they're taking on something that's critical, that is needed, instead of feeling like they're being told all the time exactly what to do and being watched over, like a micromanagement feeling.
Definitely. Well, Chris, that is all we have time for today. I hope that a few of you guys listening can take some of these topics that Chris has talked about and really implement them into your own life and your own business. Thank you for joining me today, Chris, and I'm sure I will see you tomorrow.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve. It was a great time.
It always is. We'll catch you next time right here on ATM.
You just listened to All Things Marketing Podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast to catch every new episode every day. Want to be a guest on the show? Sign up at PureDriven.com/guest. See you tomorrow here at the ATM.